Hello and Chag Sameach from Modi'in, Israel. In this video, I want to talk about the agricultural aspects of Shabu'ot, specifically with a focus on this stuff here. These are stalks of wheat. And at first I want to note that, of course, Shabu'ot is most famous as being a commemoration of the receiving of the Torah on Har Sinai. This is, of course, from the writings of our rabbis and our prayers. But curiously, that connection is completely absent in the Torah. The Torah frames Shabu'ot only within agricultural terms. So, for example, the ritual starts with Korban HaOmer, the barley offering on the second day of Pesach, time when the barley is ripening. Then we count 7 weeks until the time when the wheat is ripening. And we bring a wheat offering called Shetei Alechem, the 2 loaves of bread. The holiday is 1 day long, presumably because the very next day, instead of having Halom White or something, we're expected to start harvesting the wheat. As the Torah says, Hag Shabu'ot ta'aseh lecha bikurei qatzir haitim. Make the holiday of Shabu'ot at the beginning of the wheat harvest. And wheat is one of the most important crops in the world. There are more acres of land devoted to growing wheat than any other crop in the world. The importance of wheat is well recognized by the Torah. It is the first of the Shivat HaMinim, the 7 species of Israel. And Moshe tells Bnei Israel, God is bringing you to a land of wheat, barley, etc. Eretz Haita U'Sa'ora v'chulei. But I have a question actually on this pasuk of the 7 species. And that is, the people of Israel were leaving Egypt. They also grew wheat there. We know from the story of Yosef, for example, Sar HaOfim, the master of bakers, so they were baking bread in Egypt, they were growing wheat there. Indeed, in the time of Moshe, the time of Yetziat Mitzrayim, wheat was being grown by people all over the Middle East. It was a staple of everyone's diets. So why does Israel get to be titled the land of wheat? That's my question. So what I'd like to suggest is the reason is that Israel is the first place that wheat grew in nature, in the wild. Like all crops, before it was farmed by humans, it grew just in nature. And it's well known in the field of archaeobotany, that is a study of ancient plants, that farming began in the Fertile Crescent. The first thing that humans farmed was wheat. But 2 Israeli archaeobotanists, Moshe Feldman and Mordechai Kislev, I read their publication in the Israel Journal of Plant Sciences, December 2007. So they try to pinpoint exactly where the first place that wheat developed in nature. And their conclusion is that was in the land of Israel, specifically in the Jordan River Valley and the vicinity of Har Harmon. And what's most amazing to me, what gives an insight into the wonder of God's creation, is the reason why wheat first grew in Israel, and that is because of the climate. Israel's climate is wet, rainy winters, hot, dry summers. So therefore, a plant developed here that grew a modest stalk during the rainy season and devoted most of its energies to the seed, developing a hard and tough seed so that when the plant ripens at the beginning of the summer, the stalk withers and dies. The seed, which looks like this, it's called a spikelet, it'll fall to the ground, and now it needs to survive through the hot, dry summer until the rains come again, moisten the soil so it can re-enter and take root. So the plant developed a seed that has a hard outer shell that could protect it and preserve it throughout the hot season. And indeed, this characteristic of wheat is what made it so important to people. They discovered this plant, this food source that they could stockpile without it going bad for a long amount of time. Before, of course, preservatives and refrigeration, they could rely on a stockpile of wheat to settle down, establish societies and civilizations, for better or for worse. Perhaps this is why one opinion of our rabbis is that the Eitz Hadat, the tree of knowledge of Adam and Hava, was actually wheat. Anyway, so what I'd like to suggest to make this more meaningful to us is that Israel, the land of Israel, gave birth, in a sense, to the wheat plant, such an important crop. It also gave birth to a nation, an important nation. And our ancestors, they thrived here in the land of Israel but they were modest people, and they devoted much of their energies towards giving the future generations tools that they needed to preserve themselves and protect their national identity throughout the hot, dry summer, which in this metaphor is the exile, the harsh exile. For example, since we're talking about Shabu'ot, we'll mention the heroes of Shabu'ot, Moshe, who gave us the Torah, and David HaMelech, who gave us Sefer Tehillim, the foundation of our prayers. And the Torah and our prayers, these things, they preserved our national identity throughout the long exile, until finally, in our own generation, we see that the rainy season is coming again. God's mercy has begun again to rain down on us, so that we can finally re-enter our soil, re-enter our land, and take root and thrive once again. Hag Sameach.